I would say about 4 or 5 years ago, I stumbled across a video after I was studying high dense population, factors contributing to low birth rate of the same culture. And so I was studying Japan because they have a low birth rate, and they're one of the highest dense population cultures. And they had what was the coined phrase at the time, an herbivore, and that was a male who basically preened himself and took very good care of himself, but was essentially not interested in women and just not interested in dating at all. They weren't sexually attracted to anyone. They just kind of preened and took care of themselves, very well taken care of. And what really shocked me was later on I found a video about an experiment a scientist did. His name was John B. Calhoun, and it was called the mouse Eutopian experiment. And what he had done is he had taken an environment that was enclosed and had a limited amount of space, and it had everything that the mice needed in the space, food, water, and shelter. All their needs were met, but the density population was too dense. And so as the generations went on and the mice bred, what had happened is that the males had harassed and bothered the females so much while they were nursing and taking care of the babies, they couldn't properly take care of the babies, and the babies became essentially from generation to generation more and more damaged, psychologically and sociologically. They had a difficult time interacting with each other after so many generations because of the communication damage. The society had kind of broken down. What had happened was there was a couple different variables. There were these larger rats who would kind of bully everyone and run around and kind of just maintain their status of dominance, but they didn't really like mate much. That was one of the things that was weird. They became dominant in status. They pushed around a lot of the other mice, and it actually damaged them, hurt them, scarred them, but they didn't mate. And then there were also other ones who ran around and just weren't active. They could care less about mating, but they preened themselves and they took very good care of themselves. And the John B. Calhoun had coined the term for these ones, the beautiful ones. And when I had recognized that in Japan they had herbivores, and then I saw in the mouse Eutopian experiments under the same conditions they had what they called the beautiful ones, it's the exact same thing. And that put me in a state of shock, realizing that as our density population increases, the more and more we have people in smaller, denser places, the more and more this problem will occur. And you can see this is happening in more than one culture at this point. 15 years later, it's become obvious. My point is that I don't necessarily have an answer for this, but it was something that I had picked up and I had found 15 years later, seeing it repeat in multiple cultures. Now, when I see this, the only thing that I can think of is to reduce the density of the population in order to be able to allow people to be more comfortable. Excuse me, I'm yawning. Allow people to be more comfortable in order to raise their children in an environment they feel that is right for them. But it's an interesting thing to have studied this 15 years ago and to see it more or less coming into fruition more and more as time goes on, as we have more and more population. It's just kind of something I'm thinking out loud about, and I think other people should think about too, because I would say it's probably one of the largest struggles we'll have as human beings, and in the future, in generations to come in humankind, to consider this. It's very obvious that the experiment is comparative in analysis to humankind.